ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to everyone and happy Mandela Month as we reflect on Mandela's values and principles to make a positive impact in our community. Tonight, we are so excited to have you all here to participate in this last series of Agenda 2063 Roundtable discussion, theme, innovative and intentional leadership for the Africa we want. I would like to extend a special welcome to our panel of speakers who will be speaking tonight. They are experts and practitioners in the field. They will share facts, offer opinion, and respond to our questions. Why Agenda 2063? As Africa continues to progress and envision a brighter future, there is a growing demand for collaborative effort amongst its citizens, community leaders, and policy makers. In recognition of this, the African Union Agenda 2063 was launched in 2013 by African Head of State and Government. In support of this, our local organization, JCI Sandton, believe the success of the agenda necessitates mobilization of the people and the ownership of the continental program at the core. It further believes that the agenda requires conscious and deliberate effort to nurture an intentional leadership to drive the agenda and defend African interests. To contribute to this effort, JCI Sandton seeks to provide a unique platform. And 2 months ago, on Africa Day, we launched the Agenda 2063 Roundtable discussion for young Africans to share their views and opinion on the Africa we want. Ladies and gentlemen, in less than 2 months, in September 23, 2023, JCI Sandton will be hosting the 2023 edition of the Agenda 2063 at Sun City. This year, we'll be bringing you an exciting and empowering topic, unleashing African leadership potential for sustainable growth. Ladies and gentlemen, save the day as we would like you to join us. For our panelists, we have our IPP, which is our immediate past president, Jordan Seke, that will be joining us. We also have our local president for this year, Bongiwe Beja Tsiko, and then we also have our national vice president, Kawe, that will be joining us. So over to you, panelists, and then good evening and welcome everyone.
Thank you so much, Director Chris. That was a wonderful welcome. And thank you for setting the scene for this wonderful project that we have at JCI Sandton called Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Those of you that don't know Agenda 2063, as Director Chris has mentioned, please check out African Union. There's an entire document that shares what is the Africa we want. And really this platform from JCI Sandton is to give young people all across the continent a chance to start telling us what is the Africa that youth want. And today we're zoning in on a topic that's quite close to my heart, which is a leadership. And what is the leadership that is required in Africa? And so I'd like to also extend a welcome to my fellow leaders. We've got the National Vice President here, Kawe Sesibo, who was also a past president of JCI Sandton. I've got my immediate past president, Jordan Seke, who was the president of JCI Sandton just last year. And whilst I'm a panelist today, I'll also be moderating this roundtable discussion. I'm the current local president of JCI Sandton. I'd like to welcome you all. And in terms of engagement, please post your questions. We will have somebody facilitating to get the views of the panelists on this interesting topic. To kick things off, I want to know about leadership in Africa. What are your views and what is required in Africa in terms of leadership? Just to set the theme, we've got a youth bulge in Africa. The median age, depending on what report you read, is anything between 18 and 23. Yet, if you look at the median age of African presidents, it's north of 65 and sometimes reaching the ages of 80 and the like. Yet we're speaking about 2063. I don't think those leaders, God forbid, might be there. So we need to hear from the young people, because in 2063, I expect the young people to be the ones in leadership. And so I'll start off with you, Jordan Seke, our past president of JCI Sandton. Can you give us your views as well as an introduction to yourself on what is needed in leadership in Africa? Over to you.
Thank you, LP, and thank you, our viewers and everyone. I would like to also extend the welcome, the warm welcome, because we are in winter in South Africa, depending where you're catching us or following us from. And I would like also to extend my greetings to the National Vice President of JCI South Africa, to you again, LP, greetings. As the protocol, we are from the very structured and protocol organization. So I have to recognize viewers who are in our midst. I know that the national president is also following us, the national president of JCI South Africa, to all our senators and other viewers, greetings and warm welcome. Speaking from my perspective in view of the leadership in Africa, the biggest mistake that we often do, or we often take into consideration, is to think that leadership is about the title. And you will certainly agree with me. The Agenda 2063 tone was set by head of state because they thought that is their mandate to set the tone. But which is wrong. Leadership is an attitude. Leadership, you can be from the bottom up and you can still lead. Leadership, when I'm talking about the attitude, is what we value as JCI. The positive impact that one can make in different communities wherever they find themselves. You can be a curator, you can be whoever people think, but don't look at yourself so down that you cannot lead. Leadership is an attitude. But for the Africa we want, I think we have to set the tone of having visionary leaders. The leaders who set the tone, who set the vision by harnessing our strengths, our culture, what we have of value in Africa. Not copy and paste what other continents have been doing for 4 years. So that is, for me, what type of a leader that Africa wants. A vision leader who takes into consideration our own realities on the ground and translate them to become action in the transformation of our continent. Because I so believe that we have a lot of potential. Let me put it in that position now as my introductory or opening remarks. Thank you, LP.
Thank you so much. I love what you said, that leadership is an attitude. And I quite agree with that. I'm quite keen to hear from our National Vice President of JCI South Africa, Kawe Sosibo. What are your inputs in terms of leadership? What is required in Africa? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Local President. Leadership in Africa, it's an opportunity. However, it's an opportunity for young people to tap in respect of trying to engage on policies that are available. The policy that is currently being debated and or discussed, especially by other states in Africa, is the topic and document that JCI Sandton is interrogating, which is the Agenda 2063. I believe that young people should be interrogating this document and being able to debate it, share their views. And one view that I hold strongly is that young people must be at the forefront of discussing and shaping African policy that will benefit them in the near future, especially young people that are in business. These are the people that will ultimately get rid of the high rate of unemployment that we're currently facing as African countries. Furthermore, leadership, it's all about aligning your goals. Whatever you do as an African leader or African youth, you need to align whatever you do with the goals, and obviously whatever you're trying to achieve at a particular point, you must always make sure that your goals are aligned in terms of the document that we're going to discuss, which is the Agenda 2063, and make sure that whenever there's something that is being discussed, young people must be at the forefront. There's a slogan that young people in South Africa that they usually use, an African slogan, which they say, which one can loosely translate to say that, how will you be involved if you're just sitting in a corner? You must stand up and make sure that you're getting involved in things that Africa is trying to achieve, such as the Agenda 2063, and ultimately the Africa that we want as young people. I think I will stop there for now and can discuss later. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, incredible insights there. And I have to agree with you that we need to encourage each other as young people to understand these policies, and even, I would argue, have a seat at the table when the policies are even being curated. Because like I mentioned before, in 2063, it's us who will be actually in leadership. And so you don't want to inherit an Africa that you don't know. Right? And the discussion today is about the Africa we want. And so we would have succeeded if the people that are joining us on YouTube or on this live stream, if you can Google African Union, Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, download that PDF, you will see that there are 7 aspirations that document talks about the Africa we want, and see if you resonate or if you feel there are missing gaps. From my side, the Africa I want and what I want to see in leadership is, I dream of an Africa where we are known for the right things. I'm really, really, really tired that, you know, if I were to reference my own country in the continent, we've got the highest Gini coefficient in the world, which means the gap between the rich and poor is extremely large. We are known for poverty, we are known for crime and the likes. And so I'd like to see leadership make a dent in these things that, you know, kind of mask Africa's richness. We've got resources, we've got amazing young people, like I mentioned, one of the youngest populations in the world who've got innovative ideas and can contribute to the economic growth of their countries and directly to the growth of our beloved continent. That is what I want to see in leadership, real leadership tackling real issues. And I also like to say that youth need to be at the center of youth solutions. Too many times it's brought down from the higher powers that be. I really would like to see youth have a voice in the policies, like you were saying, National Vice President, and also IPP, you mentioned that leadership is an attitude. If we have an attitude that says, I will be an active citizen, I will be responsible for the Africa that I want, I will play my role in developing this continent, then I think we'll start to see a change, and the positive change, and see the Africa that youth want. Speaking about innovation, you both have been quite humble in terms of sharing your expertise and what you do on a day-to-day basis, regardless of your involvement in JCI Sandton and JCI South Africa. Jordan is actually a FYR expert and has done incredible research. His papers have actually been published, and he speaks a lot about innovation, about technology, and integrating technology in our everyday life, which is sometimes a hard conversation in Africa when you think about our infrastructure. You think about something I've recently learned, which is internet inequality. We speak about poverty inequality, but there's internet inequality and access to data and the like. Where I'm going with this, Mr. Seke, I'd like to pick your brain around innovation and leadership. Do the two coexist? For a long time, we've had discussions that you can be innovative, but it's got no space in leadership. What are your thoughts there? Because what our topic tonight is speaking about innovation and leadership in Africa. Please share your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, LP, and thank you, National Vice President, for the insight. Speaking of both concepts, they can be buzzword in some sense, because leadership itself counts more than 2,000 definitions. And it became the hot topic for the last few years. Everyone have noticed that we're suffering from the vacuum of leadership, especially in our beloved continent called Africa. But I don't like to call it Africa, I call it home, because it's Africa for others, but it's home for us, and for me especially. So the two concepts are really significant for the development, for the transformation of our continent. Yes, you mentioned the digital divide between within the continent, but that does not mean that we cannot do something about it. Remember, earlier on, I mentioned the fact that we must have visionary leaders. What I mean by that is people who can take what we have and improve on the service delivery with what we currently have. Innovation sometimes is defined as a new idea and novel and all those things. But people often forget that innovation can be also an improvement of what exists already. It can be an incremental change of things that we basically use each and every day. So by having these visionary leaders, they will be able to identify our strengths and use them to transform our continent. But how those two elements or two constructs, speaking from the research point of view, how these two constructs came together? Remember, we talk about economic growth. And in 2020, when we started with this webinar in the middle of the lockdown, there were quite a few research that we mentioned on. And you will notice that there is great innovation, or there is a lot of economic growth when leaders decide to implement the innovation that is happening on the continent to make sure that our countries, our respective countries, move forward. So these two elements cannot be, I cannot say that they cannot be dissociated. But however, speaking for the Africa we want, I still believe, and I strongly believe, that these two concepts are really needed. Please forget because there is no universal definition of leadership. That we have to be sure of. So each and every young person on the African continent must have his own definition of leadership. Remember, it's not about the title. Leading from within. Leaders without the title. Leaders who can impact. And the impact comes with innovative ideas. Creativity is part of innovation. So for me, and for the viewers and people who are following us, I don't want us to be too technical. Just identify the strengths that you have in your particular community and take initiative. And I'm glad that we are doing this discussion in the Mandela Month, Let it be your Mandela action in July 2023. And when we're gonna meet in 2024, by God's grace, I believe we will have a different topic or a different discussion to have. So let's forget about the digital transformation divide, the internet that is not reliable. Let's build on what we have and harness on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Leadership from within and building on what we have. I think that resonates quite strongly. And I'd like to, at this point, share a little bit about our national vice president, actually a legal professional, has his own a legal firm, Sosibo Attorneys, very well versed. And I think that's why even in your introductory remarks, you spoke about policies. I wasn't at all surprised. And so now I'd like to pick your brain on the other half of our topic, which is intentional leadership. What can you tell us about your thoughts? Because, you know, people can also have negative intent. What should we be taking from intentional leadership in order to build the Africa that we want? Over to you, my National Vice President.
Thank you, LP. I think one first would have to establish how does one become an intentional leader in the place where they are leading. And in my view, I would term it as one would have to ensure that they consistently align, you know, with a robust and well thought out vision. And vision, it's something then that they want to achieve in the particular space that they're operating in, you know. And then further, you know, intentional leaders, one would have to be very clear about their goals, as mentioned earlier on, and what do they want to accomplish. As young people in Africa, we need to ask ourselves the question, what do we want to accomplish compared to the generation that is currently leading now? And how these goals align with our values as young people in Africa. I think the IPP, Mr. Jordan Sekhet, touched on innovation and the space that young people are currently, you know, exploring the most is the internet and social media, as well as creating content, which is something that generates income. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about opportunities. It's something that government does not bring to us, but young people are actually in the forefront in creating opportunities for themselves. You know, furthermore, you know, the conversations and decisions that we take as leaders, they have to be intentional. We have to take focus and be, you know, consistent in the actions that we take in order for us to reach the goals that we want. And one would have to continuously do some self-reflection on the overall purpose of what you want to achieve as a leader. For instance, if you are leading an organization, JCI South Africa or JCI HQ or JCI Sandton, you need to work on your purpose and continuously reflect on how do I achieve that purpose together with the people that are in your team. You know, furthermore, I think also what is also important is we don't take time to journal, you know, things such as our values and we just ask ourselves the important questions. Where do I want this organization to be? If you are leading as the president of the country, where do you want to see South Africa? In which position do you want to see South Africa in the African continent and the global economic platform? Because ultimately you are representing us also in the global economic platform. Also, I think one would have to continuously remind themselves by journaling, writing paragraphs on things that they consider important, and some of these things, when we take them in the space that I specialize in, we then say the things that, for instance, the president that wants to achieve, they would then have to be enacted into law, such as the official language that was recently added, which is the sign language. It's something that was documented and then it was finally enacted into law. which it's something that I view as progressive, and it's something that we need to commend as leaders. And after considering all these things, one would then have to be conscious, of their daily actions and keep in check whether they are still intentional of the purpose that they want to achieve. They continuously have to align, keep in check, consult, and if you are leading in a high structure, you have people that have done extensive research in issues such as social sciences, economics, law, and so forth. And these are the people that are available at the disposal of leaders that they have to continuously consult. And then this is what I term intentional leadership. Whatever they want to achieve, they put their mind into it, and can people objectively know your vision, goals from actions and behavior? If not, then what steps can you take to ensure the alignment? So one would continuously have to be aligned, with their goals and vision, and make sure that every time they consult, to make sure that they're still intentional about their leadership, to make sure that they achieve the purpose. And it's quite a detailed point, but just the last point that I would like to make, Madam Moderator, is that intentional leadership, one needs to recognize that investing in the growth and development, of the people that are around you, as you are serving in the local board as president, there is investment in those people, and it is essential for the success of the organization for the long term. And once you have those people and they are aligned, and they also intentional about the project that you want to achieve as the local president. For instance, we mentioned the president together with his cabinet, they also need to be aligned with the president's vision, and they are also intentional, and they're able to achieve the goals of the team. Thank you.
Awesome. From both your insights, what I'm reading is that leadership can actually be something very personal. IPP Jordan spoke about leadership from within, and you're speaking about purpose-driven leadership, being, intentional about educating yourself and also making your voice heard as a young person. And whilst we're looking at the entire continent, what I'm appreciating about this roundtable discussion is that we're taking it right at an individual level to ensure that even everyone that's on this call has a role to play. And so I'd conclude as saying that the Africa I want starts with me. And it starts with me allowing myself to be innovative, because as Jordan mentioned, he did say that the two constructs of innovation and leadership coexist and can coexist. We should embrace them being integrated and also being intentional, which was detailed by yourself, National Vice President. At this point, I'd really like to welcome again everyone who's joined on our YouTube live stream. I do see some familiar faces. The local president of JCI Tshwane is there. Thank you, saying awesome to be here. Well done, JCI Sandton. It's awesome to have you as well. We also have one of our board members from one of the local organizations asking us, how can we leverage technology and digital innovation to foster leadership that aligns with the objectives of Agenda 2063? I think our 4IR specialist, you can take that question. And then I'm actually going to read one of the other questions, if you can start preparing, National Vice President. It says here, how do we ensure that the progress towards the Africa we want is equitable and includes all sectors of society, especially the marginalized and underprivileged? So we'll come to you on that question, National Vice President, after we hear from our immediate past president on all things tech. How do we leverage technology and digital innovation to foster leadership that aligns with the objectives of Agenda 2063? Over to you, Past President Jordan.
Thank you, Madam LP, and thank you to the person who asked this question. And for me, as I said earlier on, I don't want us to be too technical. Let's be frank to each other and let's use plain English to address this question. For me, I'm going to be talking about two major issues that we have in Africa. We have, in order for us to leverage technology and digital innovation to foster leadership in the Africa we want, we have to empower quality education, because the education sector is dying. Yes, people can speak about, no, the school is not giving us anything, but the basic about the integration of technology come from school, from education, and the environmental stewardship. Today, we cannot speak about sustainability without being mindful of the climate change. Those are critical topics that we might not be talking here, but we must keep it in the back of our mind. Those two elements put together bring us to what we call inclusive leaders. Inclusive leader, what does it mean? It means that as a leader, yourself, myself, we have to come on board with everyone, irrespective, regardless of their belief, regardless of their gender, regardless of their social background. That must not be a criteria to bring them on board. So with that, we will be able to create the balance, the equilibrium in economy, to make sure that what people want is what we're giving them. Because, you know, technology is a vast topic. What do we call technology? And even the adoption, the implementation of this technology into our countries, it can also be very challenging. And I think, Madam LP, you mentioned the status of our infrastructure. For people who are in Johannesburg, I think all of us are always on the road. Can we see the status of our road? Our roads are full of potholes. This small element is set to destroy our well-being in the years to come if we don't take action now. So by taking action, we have to tell people that we cannot be driving in the potholes road. Why? Because it can be a hazard for many accidents. That's why I said we have to empower the education quality. People have to go back to the basics. And the environmental stewardship, our society, due to climate change, we can wake up in the morning, we are not able to go to our office because of the flooded road, the flooded river that have gone beyond our own control. So how do we do that? We must make sure that we have environmental champions, people who are there to remind us constantly on what we have to do to protect our environment. If that is the Africa we want, and that is how I strongly believe that we can leverage technology and digital innovation to foster that leadership in the Africa we want. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jordan, for that beautiful, beautiful answer. And now to a section that's quite close to my heart, around including the marginalized and underprivileged. The question to you, National Vice President, is how do we ensure that the progress towards the Africa we want is equitable and includes all sectors of society, especially the marginalized and underprivileged? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Local President. I also like this question, and I'm fortunate because in university I was part of an organization called Classy, as well as Section 27, and I will tie to that and how we actually made people aware that there's actually a document called the Constitution. In order for us who know about this document called Africa We Want, and the leaders of Africa, that actually came together and drafted this document through consultations. How they can ensure that it's equitable and includes all sectors of society, especially the marginalized and underprivileged, is through consultations. Doing the groundwork, visiting the rural areas and educating, informing, and electing community leaders, allowing tribal leaders and chiefs and so forth to actually take part and represent their communities in such structures. I think by doing so, these leaders and tribal leaders and community leaders and chiefs, so to speak, are the people who are well informed of what the communities need and how can the Africa we want and the Agenda 2063 document actually consider their challenges and how can it redress their challenges that they have in their community. It's through consultations and nothing more. I think also similar to when South Africa wanted to amend the constitution, they did road shows throughout South Africa, consulting with various stakeholders, going to rural areas, the most remote areas, just to hear views of people sharing what do they think, do they want the constitution to be amended in terms of Section 25, how they like the disposal of their land to be addressed in terms of allowing the appropriation of them without compensation, if they think it's fair or not, and so forth. And this was done through consultations and visiting people and calling community gatherings and allowing people to share their views. And that's how we can actually have the marginalized and underprivileged people considered in such documents and make sure that it addresses the issues that they have in their communities. And I mentioned earlier on that I was part of an organization called Section SLSJ and Section 21. And what we actually did there, we were tasked in educating young people and as well as women and children in their communities about the Constitution, their rights, and how can they actually effect the rights that they have and make sure that they are vindicated when their rights are being infringed. And this was done through consultation and visiting the most remote areas. I remember there was a place I went to called Mkandu. It was during winter and would get housed by these grannies in their house. And it was during the harvesting season of maize, and we then have discussions about the Constitution then, and then most of the time we'd actually refer, but obviously in their language and try and translate judgments that have been before the Constitutional Court, especially the judgment of Footboom, and we explain to them the significance of that judgment and so forth. So it is quite important when such documents even get publicized to consult with the people by doing the groundwork, visiting the rural areas, allowing leaders to share their views. And what is great in South Africa is that we have an organization that then deals with tribal leaders where they meet and share their views. And such organizations should be consulted and their views be obtained before these documents can even see Parliament and get voted on. So it is important that the marginalized, especially the underprivileged women and children, and they get consulted. And most of the time, they wouldn't know what these things mean and what impact would they have should these things be implemented. So it's quite important that firstly they get educated on such documentation, and from that education, then they'll be able to discuss and share their views. It's not that they're dumb, they're very smart. They just need you to impart knowledge and share their views. And it will really assist government and other African heads of state if they really consult, rural people and the marginalized and the people. When you say the marginalized, also you must not forget the other groups that are excluded in our communities, such as the LGBTI community, as well as the people living with disability. We tend to forget those. So it's quite important that they also get considered when such documentation is drafted and ultimately gets voted in Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you. And what I'm seeing is we're actually introducing another I in our topic. We've been speaking about innovative leadership. We've been speaking about intentional leadership, and what you've just shared about consulting those that are marginalized is what I would term inclusive leadership. And so I think these are some of the ingredients that we need in order to have the Africa we want. One innovation that I would like young people to come up with is to solve this issue of load shedding. We did post that our discussion would be from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. But unfortunately, guys, I'm going to have to wrap it up soon because of this issue, but I'm posing it as a question to the people that are here on this live stream. If you're a young person and you've got a brilliant idea on how to solve this issue, then we can have these discussions and engage even on a deeper level. And just to borrow again from you, National Vice President, you were speaking about consulting the marginalized, but you also mentioned quite something that's quite important for me, which I would term in my own words as a diversified group of views. You actually need to have diverse views in order to build a proper continent that is functional. And often as young people, we are our worst enemies when it comes to voting. And this is across the continent. When it's voting, there is apathy directly from the youth. We do not realize that us not voting is actually detrimental to building the Africa that we want. So the second call that I have for you, if you're on this live stream, is number one, go to jcisandton.co.za, follow us, keep in the loop on the Africa we want, the Agenda 2063. If you knew nothing about this, get the document from the African Union, study the 7 aspirations, and join us in person in Sun City in September, where we'll have an in-person engagement about the Africa that youth want. The second call I'm making is that you need to educate yourself and put your hand up if you are between the ages of 18 and 40. Sign up to be a Junior Chamber International member. We've got local organizations across the country. If you are in Gauteng, Johannesburg, contact JCI Sandton. We have one in JCI Tshwane. I see that we've got a nice message here from our YouTube viewers. Let me just read it. Good day, leaders. Thank you for the insightful conversation. Thank you for the insightful conversation. It is important to get the message and opinion of the majority of people before we implement such policies, since they are said to be democratic. I fully agree with you, which is why, as JCI Sandton, we actually record these sessions and we elicit what are the African youth saying about the Africa they want. And we want to submit to the likes of the African Union to say, listen to the youth in Africa, and please add a chapter in the Agenda 2063 document that says, this is the Africa that youth want. And we are very proud as JCI Sandton, we actually have the African Union Youth Envoy as a member of JCI Sandton, and she's doing incredible work across the continent, doing the exact same thing, finding out from youth. And I do agree with you. I think we mentioned it earlier in our discussion that youth need to have a seat at the table. So thank you very much for that comment. And it looks like we've covered all the comments. And so for my last question, before it gets dark and you don't see us and load shedding kicks in, let's try get one more question in. All three of us have been president. I'm currently in my term hasn't come to an end yet, of JCI Sandton. And I just want you to reflect on that year of leadership when you were the president of JCI Sandton, a youth organization that is passionate about developing leaders and that passionate on making sure that people have a social responsibility. Were there any innovations that you introduced in your year or were the actions that you were deliberate about? Did you display intentional leadership? And this time I'm going to switch things up, and I'm going to start with you, National Vice President, and end with my immediate past president. National Vice President, also remind us as you start, which year were you the JCI Sandton local president? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I think once we're still on that point, just when I think of the question that you mentioned now, you just asked now, but I just want to tie something with the point with one of our viewers. She just mentioned that the people must be consulted. There is a book that was written by John Stuart Mill, who is a philosopher, and he goes in great detail, about freedom of expression, and that people must be consulted, and what should be sanctioned in terms of what should be published and what should not be published. But then people would then have it's a debatable issue. But I totally agree with him that things that should get sanctioned are things that bring harm to another person, right? If something does not bring harm to anyone, why sanction it? We have a lot of African leaders that are leading their countries, and they don't want the youth to actually voice out their views, and they sanction their views. So it's quite an interesting book that one should look at. In my thesis, when I did my research, it was based on freedom of expression and the criminalization of hate speech, and focusing on the hate speech bill in South Africa. So South Africa also wants to criminalize hate speech, and in that researcher says, it's quite nonsensical. Don't do it for various reasons. But in my year as a JCI Sandton president, which was 2021, is it? Yeah, which was 2021. I'm a person who likes to make everyone very comfortable in their space, number one. But I'm very firm and I'm very strict. But I would like everyone that I work with, they're comfortable, so that I do not have to continuously go back to people and say, do your work. I allow people to be free. And that's what I did as a leader in that year. And obviously, there were challenges in respect of COVID-19. But we remember there was a looting that then occurred in various parts of South Africa, and we focused in trying to assist the community of Alexandra back then, which many areas were looted, and we tried to assist and clean, and many people within the community came out in numbers and to try and assist it in rebuilding their community. It's one of the projects that we focused on that year. And the people that I worked with within JCI Sandton, it was a great team, brilliant minds, and basically it was a hub of ideas. We used to debate issues, and what I always believe in when we debate issues, it basically becomes a marketplace of ideas. When there's 3 or 2 of us, I don't believe that is the best and brilliant idea. But when there is 5 and 6 of us and we debate a topic, I believe that the most brilliant and great answer to a problem that we have, that's where we're going to get a solution. Thank you.
I can attest to your style of leadership. I was on that board when you served in 2021. You do indeed make your incumbents feel comfortable, but we did have rigorous and robust debate. And in fact, it was the year that we started to then implement this very project called Agenda 2063, the Africa We Want. And I believe it is in that year that we got an award for the Africa We Want Agenda 2063 JCI Sandton project. Last but not least, my immediate past president of JCI Sandton, you were the president last year. Can you share your reflections on this topic, intentional and innovative leadership?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam LP. While my immediate past president were talking, the national vice president, I was trying to remember, drawing from his leadership toward last year, where we were able to be working under the duty for change. And I think we have a lot of memories. On the Africa We Want project, we hosted the hybrid event in September at the Hilton Hotel, which is our partner. And it was streamed live, despite the effect of load shedding, but people from all over Africa were able to ask questions. We had attendees from Ghana and all other places. I think that alone is a true reflection of the innovative idea that we came up with as a board of directors last year to be more inclusive leaders than selective or authoritative leaders or whatever the case might be. We decided to include everyone because the cost of living keep on increasing, and it was quite difficult for us to host people coming from all over the place, getting the visa. And that is something also we have to address in the coming event, in the coming discussion, how expensive it is for you and I to travel within our continent. So trying to avoid the cost and mitigating the risk that comes with traveling within our beloved continent, we decided to have the Africa We Want event on a hybrid format. And we had the likes of Dr. Moyo, the founder of Mind, and my then director of partnership, now local president, Bongiwe Beja, as our moderator. We had the likes of the speaker, a great speaker, a member of JCI Sandton, the ambassador of South African, South Africa, Mla, who were talking about his book, which is among the best-selling books in the country. And guys, I advise people to go and buy that book, and it will enlighten your brain and find purpose in that one. And I also remember the lack of Zuleka, who was among the panelists. So it was quite a very insightful event. And that is speaking from the innovative point of view. And beyond that, in terms of leadership, what I can remember when we started our journey to be out there, because we realized that people didn't know us. Until even today, we're still doing marketing stuff. We're still out there on social media that were mentioned earlier on during our discussion to make sure that people know about the Junior Chamber International. You are missing out. So it was quite a very busy year. I have to acknowledge that. But not to scare you guys, there is a lot of learning there. As a group of developing leaders organization, I think the learning path is quite amazing if you are a JCI member. As a local president at the time, I didn't have the sole power of deciding. As my IPP mentioned, we sit there as a board of directors. People interject, people oppose, people said whatever they want to say, because we created that environment where we don't look down onto people, but we listen to each and everyone. It's a forum that we created for ourselves to grow as leaders and to make that positive impact in our community and our society at large. So my encouragement and my leadership journey was the learning curve, the sharpness that come within that duty. As a local president, you are there to represent a great pool of mind like people, like the LP that you can listen to her when she talk. You can even have like a bruise on your heart, listen to a level of English and proper English. You see our IPP, now the National Vice President, who's a lawyer, an attorney, not the brash people that goes and buy degree, people who have gone through the process and have earned their degrees. So those are the caliber of people that we have at JCI at large. And I cannot say much. I think our work is out there, and I encourage people to go again, visit www.jcisandton.co.za. You will be amazed to see the level of work and what we have achieved so far up to today. But we're still on that journey to achieve more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really can also attest in your year that it was a busy year. And one of the innovations that you did introduce is this role of director of partnerships. And we onboarded quite amazing partners from the financial sector. I remember we had an amazing launch with our partner, Access Bank South Africa, a huge bank in Africa that had recently launched in South Africa. And we've been doing some activations on financial literacy. And I know that they will join us at the in-person event in September. So congratulations to you. I really think that the hybrid event post the year that we had with National Vice President online for this very project really brought this project to life, where you could hear that young people on the continent everywhere share really interesting views and want to play their part on the Africa we want. And as we wrap up, there is a last question here that says, as young leaders in Africa, what should be our priorities in contributing to the realization of the Africa we want? What should we be intentional about? And because we've run out of time, I won't pose that question to my panelists, but I'd rather want to close on that point, because it's such a beautiful question asked by our Executive Vice President, saying, what should we be intentional about? Simply leading from within. Leading with purpose. Also be intentional about going to the links that we've shared. We've spoken about going to jcisandton.co.za. If you've been enthused by this conversation, you want to hear more, you want to plug in, I promise you, you will not regret going to that site. Be intentional about researching and informing yourself about these kind of policies that exist. Also be intentional about developing yourself. We mentioned one of our members who is a Brands SA ambassador and author, and speaks a lot about financial literacy. I see in the chat, we have put the link there. https://moneyfundi.org. The book is called Winning the Money Game. How do you win at the finances that you want? I think you will enjoy that. We also spoke about the apathy of youth when it comes to voting. If that does come up and will be coming up in South Africa, please do vote. Be intentional about playing your part and being an active citizen. What I can say about innovative and intentional leadership in the months that I've been local president of JCI Sandton, you remember that our immediate president said that their slogan for the previous year was duty for change. And the four actually had 4 pillars that guided the actions and the projects that JCI Sandton did. And just like past president reflected on what National Vice President had built in JCI Sandton in the year before him, I did the same and felt that actually we've got a solid foundation. Our current national president of JCI South Africa was the JCI Sandton local president, who then handed over to National Vice President Kawe, who you see now, who handed over to the past president Jordan, who you see now, who has handed over the baton to me. So I thought, why rethink? Why build something from scratch? Why disrupt something that's working? And instead build on what the solid foundation that these three leaders have built in JCI Sandton, even dating back to Senator Linda, who actually founded JCI Sandton. And this is why in 2023, the slogan for JCI Sandton and the board that is supporting me is lead with intention. And right there you have it, intentional leadership. We embrace innovation. And as we've discussed today, we also have inclusive leadership. I'm really excited about the in-person event that we're going to have in September. I want to wish you all a pleasant Mandela month. I see there's no more questions. I also want to take this opportunity then to thank my fellow panelists. You've been amazing. You've given us really good insights into the Africa we want. And at this point, I'd like to close this roundtable discussion, though we can continue to engage with us as JCI Sandton. All our details have been posted on the YouTube live stream. Thank you, everyone. And before our lights go off, I want to wish you a wonderful Mandela month, and let's be intentional about building the Africa